Minister had signaled India's readiness to advance bilateral ties with China based on mutual respect, mutual interest and mutual sensitivity. Prime Minister Modi had said that stable, predictable and amicable bilateral relations between the two countries can have a positive impact on regional and global peace and prosperity. Importantly, Prime Minister Modi noted that improved Indo-China ties was crucial for a multipolar world.
The fact that the Prime Minister agreed to attend the SCO Summit after 7 long years in itself is an indication of the relationship improving. Remember, both leaders, both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping, the President of China, met in Kazan, after which we saw multiple measures and steps taken by both sides. The resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, the issuance of visas after 5 years to Chinese nationals by India, and both countries talking about resuming direct flights. So these are all indications that India and China finally want to move ahead of the challenges that we've witnessed in the recent couple of years, especially the time that we saw after the Galwan clash. Now, in terms of both the countries coming together, US has also played a very big role. US tariff episode has brought India and China closer because it's a mutual concern. And remember, China is one of those countries that has openly taken a stand for India, hitting out at America saying this is bullying and this is unacceptable to levy a 50% tariff on India and that we should stand up against it. That was China's statement. Remember when the Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang Yi, came to India, he met with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. He also met with NSA Ajit Doval and later with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, what were the issues that he was discussing? He was talking about the border issue. We have seen disengagement at Demchok and Depsang. That in itself was a big indication that both countries want ties finally to normalize. But there are contentious issues as well. And you know, the trade deficit between India and China has now grown to $99.2 billion, something that always is a big concern. China wants a bigger access of the Indian markets. India wants to balance out the trade deficit, and US is watching this development very, very closely, because remember, if US wants to compete with China, then it wants India as a partner. But Donald Trump in the recent past month has not taken even a single step that can boost that kind of confidence that the US really trusts or respects India as an ally. And that's the reason why India also has started diversifying its strategy. It is looking at other countries as well. It is looking at other markets, because if United States of America believes that it can dictate its terms, then, well, India is not ready for it. And the fact that India also refused to give any sort of credit to Donald Trump for brokering peace or ceasefire like Donald Trump claims has irked Donald Trump. Remember, he is one of those self-announced peacemakers or mediators. Donald Trump is one of those self-announced mediators who is looking for a problem to solve. And India has made it absolutely clear that, great, you're an ally, good that we do trade, let's maintain a healthy relationship. But when it comes about sovereignty, well, US has no right to dictate. And the Prime Minister has made that clear time and again when he said, I'm willing to make personal sacrifices to put the interests of farmers as a top priority. So that speaks volumes about where India, China are headed and where US and China are headed at this point of time.
Xi Jinping, and like I've been saying, that this is a high-stakes diplomatic move, a moment that could reshape the contours of global geopolitics. We've had a first round of discussion already. Swati Joshi is joining us live. Swati, without any delay, bring us up to speed with what's expected, what you've seen so far, the time that you spend in Tianjin. In fact, we'll go to Swati in just a bit, but Shinjo, if you could, set things in context for our viewers who are watching this.
It's a very important meeting. Even if this tariff issue were not there, there would be enough issues to actually sort out. Because let's not forget that these two leaders are meeting after a long time. And what has happened before that? Galwan, of course, is one issue. Now there are several things that India and China need to look at. The first, of course, and foremost, is the line of actual control. As of now, we have spoken with very senior people in government and in the armed forces who say that things are largely under control. There are minor issues that are being dealt with at a brigadier level, whether it's a few more tents, a few more grazers, a few more yak and things like that. And the fact that about 4 or 5 months ago, the Chinese decided that yes, they are on the other side of the line of actual control, but they decided to thin their forces in certain areas, which basically means that across the line of control, they have fewer tanks, fewer soldiers, fewer pieces of artillery, fewer pieces of air defense equipment, all of that.
Right.
But there are still substantial forces there. So if the biggest issue is the line of actual control, if there is a move towards de-escalation, if all Chinese troops can go back to their original positions where they were 5 years ago, that would be a great breakthrough.
Right.
Apart from everything else, including trade, including investment, including support to Pakistan, a de-escalation would be the primary factor here.
Okay,
and
let's see how this meeting unfolds. Dr. Jeffrey Gunter, former U.S. ambassador, also joining the broadcast. Ambassador Gunter, good morning. Thank you for your speaking to Times Now. I'll come to you in just a bit. Let me quickly bring in our colleague Swati Joshi joining us live from Tianjin. Yes, Swati, over to you.
Well, Pranesh, the bilateral between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping is supposed to take place anywhere between 12 to 12:40, which would be around, 10:30 India time. So we are expecting that bilateral to start anytime soon. You earlier asked me about my interaction here with the Chinese media. One thing that you will see across China is that the reporters, the media here does not get into the mode of criticizing the government that much. Perhaps those who are not based out of Beijing may be a little bit critical about the economic policies or the political nature of China. But even the foreign journalists who are based out of Beijing are not that critical. If you go through the Chinese newspapers, you will see economic policies being discussed there. You will see all the great things that this government is doing, the administration here is doing. So very less criticism, but that's the way China operates. There's definitely one sentiment which is common, that the Chinese media is also looking at this as an opportunity to perhaps normalize the relationship between India and China, but they are also skeptical. So that tells you about the common concern that both the Indians and Chinese have, because you've seen cooperation as well as confrontation in the past. You've seen both those phases. And when you say that you have to look beyond the challenges, does not mean that you have to completely erase that, forget about it. It just means that while you keep that in mind, you still have to move forward, because such is the nature. You never say never. In international politics and diplomacy as well, you cannot make enemies out of everyone. You will at some point of time have to normalize those ties, and that's exactly what India is doing.
Normalcy is something that President Trump of late has not been understanding. Ambassador Suresh Goyal also joining us, Colonel RSN with us. Dr. Gunter, what is the US administration up to? Where will you stop?
I'm going to push back not so gently on you. When Donald Trump welcomes Vladimir Putin to Alaska, that is exactly what your fine and outstanding reporter just addressed, is that to attain peace, to attain cooperation in the world, you sometimes have to make a deal. And I would argue with all you guys that there's a big shadow over this getting together, whether it's the bilat that we're going to see between Xi and the great Prime Minister Modi, and that big shadow is the shadow of Donald Trump. What we are seeing right now happening there is exactly what Donald Trump has been working on, advocating for, and understanding the Trump diplomacy, which is create economic ties, create welfare and good economic security for those around you, and that's the best way to pursue peace. And there's no doubt with all the underlying issues that Modi has with China, going from your border disputes to water disputes to, you get on the list, even human rights. You know, you can't discuss China without discussing, you know, the Uyghurs, a million of them in camps. You can't discuss China without talking about exactly what you guys addressed, the issues with the freedom of the press. So my point is, what we are seeing going down right now in this summit is Trump diplomacy. And
look, Ambassador Gunter, I'm sorry to break this to you, that, I have at least more than 10 specific examples that calls out the U.S. hypocrisy as far as, your business ties with Russia is concerned. But I'll get to that eventually. But let me tell you this, because you brought this up, you are now suddenly so concerned about the plight of Uyghur Muslims in China. That is something that India keeps talking about. And having said that, what explains what U.S. is doing with Pakistan? Look at the state of people there and what Pakistan is doing by promoting and harboring terrorists. You want to find oil and minerals and whatnot? Go find terrorists in Pakistan first.
Well, I would argue that they're also a member of the organization, too, of which Modi is attending. And to expect Modi to get a condemnation of terrorism from the organization for the meeting that we're seeing in China would be like going to a group of alcoholics and getting them to stop drinking. These are some of the great funders of terror there. So I think Modi's presence there is elevating the Chinese. Modi's presence there is elevating Iran, who's a member of these organizations, elevating Pakistan. So I'm not sure why you're picking on us.
No, I'll tell you why. Because it was Donald Trump who rolled out the red carpet for Munir. And you know what Asim Munir does? Asim Munir is a patron of all terrorist organizations, some of the most dreaded terrorists on earth. And that is in Pakistan. He heads that clique, so to say.
Getting back to what your reporter said, sometimes you have to make a deal. Sometimes you have to put your people ahead of certain issues. And I think that's what we're seeing Modi doing right now at the summit. And that's what Donald Trump has to do.
Ambassador Gunter, forget about Prime Minister Modi for a minute. You must listen. The Americans have to answer for America. Now, this whataboutery won't work. And like I said in the beginning, I have at least 10 specific instances that calls out the U.S. hypocrisy. So you are okay in backing Israel, and you are silent on what's happening in Gaza. That's okay. Children are getting killed there. That's okay for you. But you are now suddenly more concerned about Ukraine. And isn't it bizarre that the U.S. is, and some of Donald Trump's advisors, Nazarov, for instance, has been blaming India, saying that this is India's war in Ukraine.
Well, I think what's more bizarre is that you're advocating for Hamas, a designated terrorist organization that attacked Israel on October 7th and slaughtered, massacred men, women, and children to the tune of 1,200 people, which is the equivalent of 40,000, and God knows what it would be the equivalent of in India, probably 100,000. The so-called genocide that you are believing the fake news.
I did not use the word, Ambassador Gunter. I did not use the word genocide. I was only, referring to what is happening because, President Trump now wants a Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to stop wars. If you really want to, why don't you start with Israel, Gaza? And by the way, you were telling me about Hamas and about why India hasn't designated Hamas as a terrorist organization. Well, the U.S. can't speak about designated terrorist groups because you're doing business with them. Pakistan is a designated terror sponsor of terrorists. Look at Hafiz Saeed. These are all global terrorists. Some of them have been designated by the U.S. State Department. And yet Trump, does business with them and he has no shame.
Just like you're doing business with them right now at this China summit. I mean, they're participating there. You go there, Modi goes there. I realize it's not his top priority right now, but for condemnation on terror, exactly, we saw what happened with the slaughter outside of Kashmir, and he's not going to get it from the organization because, like your fine reporter said, sometimes you need to work with people, even though you're not aligned with their human rights values, you're not aligned with their views on democracy. So,
no, Dr. Gunter, then why doesn't the U.S. take lead in, perpetuating or mainstreaming a rules-based order. If you're so concerned about human rights, etc., and democracy, let's not go there, because there is no democracy in Pakistan. Otherwise, General Munir would not be in White House. The Pakistani Prime Minister would be.
And who's his bilateral with? With Xi, who President Trump has tremendous respect for, and there is no democracy there either.
So what do you expect India to do? Can we change our neighbors? Should we obliterate China from the face of the earth? What do we do? What do we do about China? And why is the US doing business with China? The iPhone that you have was probably made in China. Just check the label.
What did you say is made in China? I'm sorry, I missed that.
The iPhone that you have was probably made in China.
Not for long. I got news for you, because Donald Trump came in and he's bringing a lot of that manufacturing to America. So someday I hope to be speaking with you. And by the way, who's going to be working on those iPhones? Our great partner, Democracy India, and one of our favorite prime ministers, Modi. So I think we have an agreement there that we have to focus on our two individual countries, making India great again, making America great again, and our great partners for democracy. That being said, I wish Modi great success in his meetings with Xi. I hope that he achieves great peace along that important line for India. And let's make India great again, and let's make America great again. But at the same time,
okay, Ambassador, on that note, let me now open this up. Because you're talking about making India great again. I hope someone in the Trump administration is listening to this sentiment, because at the moment, that is not the sense that one gets from the antics that we've seen so far. Swati was saying something. Swati, quickly.
Yes. I just wanted to come in very quickly, because I think the speaker got me all wrong when I said that, yes, you have to make peace. Since he used my argument, I just want to justify my argument. Yes, the Prime Minister did put people first, sir, when he decided that he's not going to bow down to the pressure that America is putting on him. He said, I'm going to make personal sacrifices to ensure that, the interest of my farmers are intact. And when you talk about peace, yes, India wants to make peace with everyone, but we are not willing to compromise when it comes to terrorism. And that's the reason why India has made it absolutely clear to Pakistan that till you do not give up terrorism, there are going to be no talks with you. And I think India is the only country that has taken a very clear stand on that. We won't compromise with our national integrity. We are not like one of those nations who can compromise the integrity and sovereignty of other nations, enter their land, wipe out a terrorist, and then make friends with them again.
Well, let's just give it to the ambassador. In the end, he concedes that the way things are at the moment, that is not the best way to approach Indo-US ties. Ambassador Goel is with us. Patitrit Pine also joining the broadcast. Ambassador Goel, your sense of what one expects from the Modi-Xi meeting, and I'm sure you have something to say about my interaction with Ambassador Gunter.
It depends on how much time I have. Frankly speaking, you had a long discussion with Ambassador Gunter, and there are many points which can be responded to. But let me start by saying, welcome to the world of real politics. It's not a question of ideologies here. It's not a question of whether we are working for the people, or etc., etc. Every nation and their leaders, whether it is President Trump, President Xi, Prime Minister Modi, whoever it is, for them, their own politics of the country and their own national interests will have to come first. There's no doubt about it. And now, therefore, coming to what actually the debate was about and what is happening in Tianjin. And I'm talking about Tianjin basically because I'm rather passionate about China, having served there at the level of First Secretary long time ago. In fact, I recall when then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited in 1988. And that was the beginning of opening up of India with China at the level of the diplomatic interactions, the relationship. Therefore, let me put it this way. I have been following what is happening between India and the USA for quite some time, obviously as a professional diplomat. And I was quite happy because I felt that our policy of non-alignment earlier had put us squarely in the leftist camp, a socialist camp with the then Soviet Union and then Russian Federation. We were taking many decisions, obviously because of our own survival needs, of our own economic needs. We needed technology. And by the way, even till today, the USA is more reluctant to pass on technology to us for various reasons. Maybe legitimate, maybe ununderstandable, but they are reluctant. France is more willing to give the technology. Russian Federation is more willing. UK is more willing. Israel does, but not the USA. But anyway, that apart, the point really here is we needed a few things. Technology, we needed economic, we needed more than anything. When the world gets divided into two camps, what do? India is not a small country, colony anymore, which can actually go into one camp or the other. We don't choose to do that. We have our own interest, and therefore we chose to go the way of non-alignment, which became strategic autonomy, a more positive form of the same independence to take our own decisions depending upon what we want. And therefore, as I was saying, I was happy as a professional, and I think I've seen this evolve not from 2000 onward, but from 1991 to 95 when I was working in New York as member of the Indian delegation to the United Nations. I noticed the kind of cooperation, interaction that grew between India and the USA. Madeleine Albright, who was at that time the PR of USA in New York, would often consult our PR on issues of sensitive nature to see how we coordinate our position. That was the thing at that time. It grew. 1998 nuclear explosion, there was a bit of a blimp, but it did not stop the interactions. Today is the first time after 30 years when I see that there is a shadow on the relationship. And that shadow has come simply because for once we find that the USA refuses to understand where our sensitivities are and where our politics is and where our economics is going. And therefore, if you take decisions like 50% tariff on India, which is basically causing the huge unemployment in Bangalore and other cities, I've seen the pictures in Tirupur, in Chennai, the garment industry, where people are not getting unemployed, gem and jewelry, and for what? And therefore, what option does India have? I want to ask this question to Ambassador Gunter. When you push us, India as an independent nation with its own economy, with its own technological aspirations, and the fourth largest economy, and President Trump calls it a dead economy? What are you talking about? For you, Pakistan becomes more important than India? I think therefore we need to really decide, and we need to see where our geopolitics will take us, and therefore if there has to be a reset, where the USA looks at Pakistan as more important to them than India is, then India has to look at the options in Indo-Pacific. What happened to Indo-Pacific policy of USA? China was the main challenger, and suddenly China becomes your darling because you are doing a deal for the critical minerals with China. So if you can do a deal with China for the critical minerals, what is your problem when we get close to China to do our own economic deal? Therefore, welcome to the world of real politics. We deal in terms of our own politics and national interest. I do hope, because the relationship with the USA is very important, I do hope that what is happening now does not become a permanent shadow.
Right.
It does not impact on the relations, and that we are able to get back to the normal relationship sooner rather than later.
Ambassador Gunter?
Absolutely. And I don't think it will be permanent damage. And the best indicator of that is look at Sergio Gore, who just was nominated by President Trump to be your U.S. ambassador in India. He's one of the closest confidants and great friends of President Trump. You have a very high-level individual with very strong relationships with President Trump who's going to be coming to your great country to work on all these issues. But what we're seeing right now is basically a disagreement across the table from great friends with shared common values. When India and America stand next to each other, all you have to say is what they have in common. A love of freedom, a love of democracy, a love of liberty. And it's very different. It's very different when you see Modi standing there in the Shanghai Cooperation Summit and organization there. You see him, who he's standing with, and those are not the greatest characters in the world. And that's okay.
Mr. Gunter, now that you brought this up again, let me remind you that not the greatest characters in the world, 90-day concessions to China on tariff. What was that for? Who were you giving it to? Not the greatest character of the not the greatest characters in the world. Ambassador Gunter, I think it'll do well, and I'm not talking about you personally, for the Trump administration to look within. The time has come to introspect, because you were talking about the US ambassador to India, Mr. Gore, and you said that he's a confidant of Trump, very close to him. Even Elon Musk was a confidant of Trump. Look what Musk is saying about Trump. And despite the differences you can have on trade, on other issues, but why have this childish commentary going on that India is a dead economy? Really?
Listen, Donald Trump, President Trump, is the greatest president America's ever had. And he's also a businessman. He understands by nominating Sergio to go to India, you are going to have a great ambassador, you're going to have a great friend, you're going to have someone who truly has the ear of President Trump. And I promise you, I've said this on your show numerous times, we're going to see a Modi-Trump summit someday, and all the bantering back and forth, just like you would have over the Thanksgiving table, over the Christmas table, over any type of table among family, will be gone, and deals will be made. And right now, what I'm seeing is the big shadow of President Donald J. Trump hovering over these great leaders. And you can even say that President Trump...
What is true is that Donald Trump must come out of the shadow that he believes he is in, and that is the shadow of a businessman. He should behave like the US president that he is in his second term. Patitrit, what should India expect as we build up to this Modi-Xi bilateral?
First and foremost, I think United States is an important partner of India, but we are literally tired of these grand lectures on democracy that we keep on getting from there. I mean, some of the biggest strategic partners of United States in Middle East, from Saudi Arab to Oman to Qatar to UAE to Bahrain, are these democracies? So please, I think the United States must understand that days of giving sermons are over. There have been 81 times when United States from 1946 to 2000 have interfered in foreign elections, all for democracy. So let me put it this way: United States even today is a very, very important partner for India. We respect that, but at the same time, when it comes to China, there are major areas of divergence. We do not deny that, but there are areas of convergence as well. No one says that in between India and China things have been sorted out. There are problems. But one thing that has happened even during the peak of the Galwan issue is that India and China never stopped communicating with each other. And we were never on the verge of a full-fledged war. So yes, we are neighbors. We have to live with that. There are challenges of China supporting Pakistan, arming Pakistan. Beyond a point, we will not weep about it. We will not complain, because we have our own way of reciprocating it by arming countries in the Southeast Asian, South China Sea. Now the issue is this: I think I find a lot of desperation in United States in the last few days about this SCO Summit. I can tell you, Pranay, one thing. Prime Minister Modi perhaps would not have gone even to the SCO Summit had it not been for President Trump and all that has happened in the last few months. So I thank the Americans for ensuring or making the impossible possible of bringing all the BRICS leaders probably together. I think the Americans must understand we have to communicate with others as well. It cannot be either my way or the highway. Yes, I agree with the ambassador that tomorrow there can be a meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi as well. We have not boycotted the United States. Have you heard a single statement from any Indian statesman criticizing America, denigrating America? But it is coming from the other side. and then you push us. You give us grand lectures on democracy, terrorism. Ahmad al-Shara, who is the president of Syria, was he not part of al-Nusra? Was al-Nusra was not a... Was
He's now a great guy, as Trump called him. A great guy, a wonderful man.
So I think, please understand, we have our own compulsions. Prime Minister Modi going to SCO Summit has a lot of issues that we have to deal with. That United States will not deal with us. That United States will not sort out for us. We have seen during Operation Sindoor what stand United States took. And that was an eye-opener for us, because we know both United States and China support Pakistan, because Pakistan is a dispensable vassal state for them to contain India. This is a reality. And we have to live with this. We have to do trade with both United States and China. So I agree. Tomorrow you can have a meeting with President Trump as well. But mutual agreements is always preceded by mutual interest and mutual respect.
And civility in narrative, most of all. You know, you can have disagreements, differences, like we've had, in our views on the show. That's okay. But I still have respect for Ambassador Gunter. These are his views under, and I understand his compulsions, because, if he steps out of line, then who knows, FBI will come calling, maybe raid his house. That's the order in the US. Dr. Gunter, I'll not, you're smiling now, but ask those who've been at the receiving end of this.
Let me tell you, I'm great friends with the amazing Roger Stone and so many of the Americans, and trust me, they were not raided by Donald J. Trump. They were raided by Joe Biden and the rest of his thugs. So you're absolutely, I got to give you credit on one thing. They did try to set me up to raid my home, and guess what? There was nothing there, and guess what? Donald Trump won his election, not for the second time, folks, but for the third time he won the election. So you're spot on. They would have loved to take me out of my house, put me in my underwear for CNN. There's no doubt about it. But let me tell you.
Very brave of you, Ambassador Gunter. But let me just tell you this, that, U.S. imports uranium, palladium, fertilizers, chemicals, all from Russia. And you gave an example of, of dealing with an alcoholic or something, around it. Let me tell you, this is a bit like someone who's sloshed and has two bottles in both his hands, telling the other person that, look, you should not be drinking. That is what the US is doing with Russia, and, then telling India that, look, don't do trade with Russia. Srinjoy.
The important point at this instant is simply, look, India has a per capita income of about $3,000, and India needs that oil very badly, because India's growth rate has to go up. We want to be a developed country by 2047. We want to grow very quickly, and we have begun to do that. It was 7.8 the other day. The important thing is that if President Trump can end the war, as he had said, he can end the war in one day during the election campaign. The earlier he ends the war, the prices of petroleum, prices of crude oil will come down. And when the prices of crude oil comes down, we don't have to buy from Russia. We don't have to buy lots of oil from Russia. We can buy it from the open market because the prices will be absolutely right for India. These are things that have to be understood by the world. And let's not forget, the Europeans buy a lot of LNG from the Russians, even at this point. The Chinese, of course, buy oil from Russia. Everyone knows that. But the fact that the Europeans buy as much LNG as they do is something that must be remembered. India wants this war with Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, to end, and as quickly as possible. Then things will be much easier for India. Economically, the problems that the South countries have faced are high prices of fuel, of food grain, and fertilizer. And these are problems South countries, including India, do not want to face.
The Trump administration does not know this? Of course they know, but I don't know what's behind this false bravado, and they now want to dig deep in Pakistan for minerals and oil, and I don't know what. The only thing you will get there, Ambassador Gunter, is skeletons of Osama bin Laden and many like him. So, don't waste your time and energy doing that. Mend your ties. Colonel Arasen.
No, say hypothetically, what would happen if we were to walk out of, this Russian purchase of Russian oil? What will happen? You will make a spectacle out of yourself. You will lose all credibility in the world. And let me remind you, just yesterday I read a piece where it was mentioned that 15% of the diesel that Ukraine consumes is supplied by India, and much of it is Russian oil, Russian crude, refined Russian crude. So it is Russian oil actually which is keeping, which is running electricity in Ukraine. The second part is absolutely, the ambassador said that you can do business with China as far as rare earth is concerned. You cut your tariffs, and when we start doing business with China, you bring all sorts of this democracy and whatnot, with Pathikrit has rightly brought out. Sir, let me tell you that he's saying the Trump shadow. Yes, Trump shadow was there in 2018 meet also. It was also that was preceded by tariff war. It was in the shadow of that tariff war, Trump's first tenure. And as I mentioned earlier, that a large amount of manufacturing was shifted to Southeast Asian countries. But this time you are talking about Trump's shadow. Let me tell you, the Chinese have given him back. Your entire country is starving of rare earth minerals, to the extent that the first time in the history of United States of America, the Pentagon has got into this business of rare earth. I'm talking about that firm, called MP Materials. And all this talk about India making, windfall profit. How much profit have we made, sir? $2.5 billion annually. Is that windfall profit? And even if we are making profit, so what? So what? You give us cheaper oil? We'll stop buying from Russia? So, I mean, we are there. And when you started doing business, Henry Kissinger and Nixon, from that year, 70 onwards and right up till, 80s. When you were totally in the Chinese lap, you brought them into this entire global business order. You helped, the economic rise of China, and now you are telling Uyghur
all of
Muslims
this is well documented. But Ambassador Gunter, look, no hard feelings. Like I said, I understand your compulsions. After the show, you must have a call with Bolton, if you can, and ask him what happened to him. And then next time we meet, sir, I'm sure you will be a more reasonable man than what you are already. Because he'll tell you how to deal with Trump. He's been on the receiving end. I could have mentioned Musk, but, let him be occupied with Starship and other things. But Ambassador Gunter, good talking to you. Thank you for being a sport. I thank all our guests, Pathikrit, Ambassador Goel, Colonel Arasen, for joining us on Times Now. We're building up to that big ticket bilateral. President Xi Jinping, Prime Minister Modi, 40 minutes set aside for this bilateral. Let's see what comes out of it. But someone who knows a thing or two about China, Gautam Bambawale, a former ambassador to China, is speaking exclusively to Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan.
As Prime Minister Modi is visiting China after a gap of about 7 years to attend the SCO Summit to talk about the implications, what